Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with The Fault in Our Stars. This is a donation reward for Smurf, so thank you as always, Smurf. All I know about this movie is that it's a romance, and it seems to be divisive. Like, there's a very, very strong fan base for this movie. I know when this first came out, like, people were raving about it. But I also know there's a pretty notable amount of detractors, of people who say it's not really that good. People who there's detractors for almost any romantic movie, though. Look at The Notebook. There are people who detract from that too. And to be fair, there are some things in The Notebook that are not that great, that didn't age that well. But yeah, I don't know what to expect from this one. I really don't. The title doesn't even give me really anything to work off of. What I can say is that this movie is 2 hours long. So that's fun. Longer movie. I was originally going to do this movie last week, but based on time, based on when I woke up and everything, I decided not to. But we're getting to it this week. And yeah, I'm excited to see what this is about and hopefully enjoy it. With romantic movies, it varies. Some of them I like, some of them I don't. It's always hard to tell. Excuse me. But to be fair, with me, it's usually hard to tell anyway. Just with any movie, really. But like I said, I'm willing to check it out, see what it's like, and maybe I'll be on the positive side of things. Hopefully. So, let's get this going. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades black and then it fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the movie. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So before anything, I want to get to this. I'm not going to talk about this too quick, or too long, hopefully. We're not going to go into like all the critical reviews and everything this time. I simply wanted to look one thing up regarding this. And so I wanted to look up why the people who dislike this movie dislike it. So I ended up finding a Reddit thread. It's posted by a user who I guess is now deleted, from 9 years ago, which was, yeah, I think 2014, when this movie first came out and everything. If my math is correct. Yeah, because 10 years from 2014 would be 2024, and it's 2023, so yeah. Yeah, this person, the original poster, is asking like what everyone's thoughts on it and everything are. They say, I see it being disregarded and shrugged off simply because people consider it quote unquote young adult, in the vein of Twilight or Divergent, or that it's a simple cliche romance, and it gets shrugged off for that as well. The original poster then goes to state, I personally am a young 20s straight guy who went to see the movie, and I enjoyed every bit of it. Acting was fantastic, and pacing was great. Storytelling was smooth, and the dramatic parts were dramatic. What does everyone else think? So, clearly, OP was looking for kind of explanation on why some people wouldn't like it or whatnot. Right off the bat, we have someone explaining, again, from another deleted account, it appears. This person says, it's a perfectly good book/movie. Unfortunately for me, it was a massive disappointment. That seems kind of contradictory. I really enjoy John Green's YouTube series, so I jumped at the idea for a book. It is a cleverly crafted book with a clear target audience in mind. Shame I'm not a part of the audience, and all the cliche made me cringe. So this person is just saying that they're not part of the target demographic for the book and that they find it cliche. They say, I found the characters incredibly cliche. I had the ending figured out pretty quickly. It's like I was reading A Walk to Remember all over again. The dialogue was very unrealistic. They just came off as pretentious. I applaud it for inspiring young readers, and you have to realize that opinion isn't fact. It's not quantifiable, it's just my opinion. And that's fair. That's completely fair. You're allowed to have your opinions. That's perfectly fine. And this is mostly seeming to refer to the book. Now, I don't know about that. I can't speak on the book. So, continuing, Andrew Oman 89 said, the cringe was my biggest issue as well. The scene where they kiss and everyone around them starts applauding, it read like a top post from r/that happened. I assume like that's a Reddit, a subreddit that's all about like things that very clearly didn't happen. I assume it was sarcastic. But yeah, it's like that was probably one of the weirder moments in the movie for me too. The applauding thing, it did feel weird. It felt weird. I will admit that. I didn't think it was that bad though. It was a little weird, but eh. Pwned _U_in_MK, what a username, responded, it's really Twilight's fault. I know it's completely unfair, but that's the way it is. And I'm saying this as an unbiased observer. The original Twilight film was garbage, but it was seen massively. It invaded popular media despite being a huge pile of crap. It became a billion-dollar franchise, and when you have a billion-dollar franchise, you're going to have imitators. So that's the preconception of young adult romance-centered novel-based films. They are all looked at as riding the Twilight wave. To a degree, I would agree with this, and that comes for a lot of genres, a lot of styles of films and everything. It's not just young adult romance and everything. There's a lot of movies and books and games and stuff that will be seen as riding the coattails of others. There's a lot of people who are saying that about a lot of animation riding the coattails of Spider-Verse currently. Because Spider-Verse had this unique form of animation with it, and now a lot of other movies and shows and stuff are doing similar things. And yeah, I've seen some people complaining about that. I've also seen some people saying that's a really good thing, but it just shows how diverse tastes are, I guess. And I've seen people say that about video games. Like, oh, a big video game comes out, and then other games, they say, start to emulate that style or that tone or that feeling. And there are going to be detractors from that as well. And that's fair. That's fair. But they continue. So on the one side of the fence, you have the people that potentially rightly, quote unquote, hate Twilight, and therefore are pushing as hard as they can to kill the trend. Sometimes there's collateral damage, and films that are legitimately good get hated on because they're part of a trend. So, yeah. This person is just saying it's because of Twilight. Because Twilight, this movie gets shit on by proxy. Awesomeness on a Plate said, your typical teenage fangirl here who read and saw The Fault in Our Stars and did the same thing for Twilight. There's a huge difference between the two. Mostly the fact that Twilight portrays an abusive relationship. Seriously, Bella isolates herself from everyone because of Edward, with a spineless girl who'd rather be with a rich vampire than go to college. I mean, not that college is a better choice necessarily, but in Fault of Our Stars, the relationship is healthy and neither one controls the other. They are together not because the guy lusts after the girl, but because they've fallen genuinely in love. They're friends for like half the movie. It takes ages before they even kiss because they take time to get to know each other, unlike Twilight. Okay, Augustus is occasionally a little annoying, but tame compared to most teen guys I know. Let's try to find some more here. Another deleted user says, I think people who have said the dialogue isn't realistic haven't talked to teens or people in their early 20s lately. Again, this was 9 years ago, pretty much a decade ago, but still. That's how a lot of people I know talk, early 20s here. I did not read the book prior to, but walked in and enjoyed the movie for what it was worth. And this also coming from a straight dude like OP. I have, however, read Paper Towns, and am thoroughly excited for that adaptation. That's another one of those, I guess, romantic movies I just never seen. So I could go on and on here, but I'm not going to waste all that time. Basically, it seems like the biggest consensuses for the people who don't like the movie are either that it feels cringy and unrealistic, or that that it rides the tails of the coattails of Twilight. And I don't think either is necessarily correct or valid as a complaint. With the riding the coattails of Twilight, that's not a valid complaint for anything. That's not a valid criticism. You should always judge a piece of media, no matter what it is, on its own merits. If you're judging it because of another piece of media, that makes no sense. It's just like the people who judge Legend of Korra based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. It's like, yes, Korra is a sequel series, but it's still its own series. It should be judged on its own, but people always just look at it and it's like, okay, it's not as good as Last Airbender to us, so we've got to hate on it. We've got to treat it like shit because it's not just another Last Airbender. And it's just, that kind of stuff irritates me. It's like, judge the piece of media on its own merits, not how it compares to another piece of media. The Fault in Our Stars, maybe it took some, you could say it took some inspiration or ideas from Twilight. I doubt that's the case. It's just another young adult romance. That's really the only connection I feel. It's just not a valid complaint. And the complaint about it being too cringy or unrealistic, one, what's unrealistic about this? Like, please explain that to me, because nothing about this felt unrealistic. And again, if you're talking about the dialogue, it's like that one person said, a decade ago, in 2014, I was, 22 years old? I was not that far removed from being a teenager. This is definitely how teenagers talked around that time. Like, it's very much so. In fact, I've heard teenagers talk like that in more current days, too. It's like, it's just not unrealistic dialogue at all. In fact, I would say this movie has some of the more realistic dialogue I've heard in a movie. Especially a romance film like this. I've seen quite a few of these, and a lot of them very much do feel unrealistic. In fact, most movies do not have realistic dialogue. In a way, that's almost kind of the point. When you're making a movie, you have to make the dialogue entertaining rather than realistic. That's what most films try to do. You sacrifice realism in order to have the entertainment. And this movie seemed to focus a lot more on the realism. And it was entertaining, but it was more. It wanted to make it feel real. The way the characters talked and joked and everything felt very real. And if some of that comes across as cringy to you, which by the way is an extremely subjective ideal, like cringiness is entirely subjective. What's cringy to one person is not going to be cringy to another, necessarily. It just depends on the person. But if some of that stuff is cringy to you, then it is, but that doesn't make it unrealistic. That's just, it's just opinion. It's just perspective. And even so, that doesn't hurt the movie. In my eyes, it's like most movies I've watched have cringy dialogue. Almost all of them. It's like you go into movies and don't expect to hear something cringy, you're gonna have a bad time, because you're going to. Like pretty much every single superhero movie I've ever watched has had cringy shit in it. All these dramas and action movies and romance movies, horror movies, all of them get cringy from time to time. Because again, cringiness is a subjective ideal. It's something that is determined by the person, and it's just a line or a statement or something that's just like, it just makes you kind of like cringe. how else would you put it? And that can be used in some movies for comedic effect, or even to make someone come across as unsettling or unnatural. It's partially about how it's used, too. You got to think about that aspect. I feel like it's not a real valid complaint to file against a movie, especially as a main complaint. If you want to complain about the story and the characters and don't think they're well written, that's a valid complaint. That's something you can complain about, even if I think you're wrong. It's very subjective. But yeah, I just feel like if those are the main complaints against this movie, I don't see it. I don't see how that could be seen as valid. But about 15 minutes into these afterthoughts, let's actually talk about my thoughts on the movie. This was great. I went into this movie not knowing what to expect. Again, all I really knew that it was a romance. I had no idea about the cancer part. I had no idea that it was going to have a tragic ending. I had no idea about Willem Dafoe. I went into this pretty much only knowing that it was a romance and nothing else. So I went in as blind as you can get. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the romance was extremely realistic, and like was said in some of those Reddit posts, I like how it took its time with it. It didn't feel like it was just thrust upon you too quickly. It didn't feel like it was unrealistically handled. It felt like it was two people who genuinely fell in love. Not just were thrust into it because that's what the movie script demands. Like a lot of romance movies. It wasn't a love at first sight situation. It was just, they were in the same group meeting together. He thought her answer was interesting and he wanted to talk to her and become friends with her. And they did. They became friends, and it was very clear that friendship was going to evolve into something more. Like, you could definitely see that. But it didn't, hit you over the head with it. It didn't make it all about just that right from the beginning. It built up to it. And you have other characters in the movie who did a great job, connecting to our main leads, and it helped it feel a lot more full. Like, you see a lot of these movies where it's all about the main leads and the side characters are honestly set dressing at best. But this movie, it felt like the side characters were, actual characters. They felt like they had a point. Their input into the film and into the lives of the main leads allowed everything to feel more complete and allowed the characters and the story to move forward in the way it needed to. It felt a lot better handled in terms of that than I think I've seen in almost any other romance film. It's really impressive, honestly, how good the other characters were. Whether it's the parents, whether it's the assistant to Willem Dafoe's character, or him himself. It's like, even if they were like bad characters, like Van Houten, like a bad guy, clearly a fucking asshole. Even someone like him, it's like he served a purpose for the film. He was a good character, and let's not forget Gus's best friend. Like, this dude was probably the MVP of all of the side characters in this. He was just the absolute best. He was funny, he was likable, he was sympathetic, and he was just a ride or die bro to the end for Gus. And even for after Gus's death, why is her name escaping me? I've been talking about this, and I'm forgetting her name. I'm remembering Gus's name. I had pulled the movie up on my phone to look up for the names and everything. So I have to try and find the names here again. Hazel Grace. Also, Isaac was Nat Wolf. Okay. And yeah, I cannot pronounce the Van Houten's assistant's name. I can't pronounce that. But pretty much everyone was great. Like, the only exceptions being, like, very, very minor characters, like the support group leader. It's like, he was a nothing character. He wasn't meant to actually be anyone. But yeah, it's like, you have Isaac being a good friend to Hazel even after Gus's passing, and it just shows that friendships aren't going to end; they're going to expand through that. And you even see Van Houten come to Gus's funeral to deliver that message and everything, and he even explains himself, and he doesn't make up for what he did, but you kind of understand how his life fell apart and how he became so bitter and cold and everything. Again, it doesn't excuse his actions or his words, but it explains them. I've said that in many movies and whatnot. It doesn't excuse the actions, but it explains them. There is a difference. And Willem Dafoe is amazing. Willem Dafoe's always amazing. He's a phenomenal actor. He's also really fucking funny in real life. Like, I've seen some interviews, and he's an absolute jokester. He loves to mess around. He's goofy as fuck. He just seems like a cool guy to hang out with. But yeah, I really love the side characters in this. And the pacing was really good because it almost convinced me it was really bad. And let me explain. In everything pretty much leading up to where the wish was being brought in, the genies, which are obviously Make-A-Wish, when all of that was brought up, everything before that, it felt like it was going slow to me. It felt like it was going slow, but once the wish stuff started to bring up, and especially once they got to Amsterdam, it's like the pacing, like, it just stopped feeling slow to me. It stopped feeling slow, and it felt natural, and at that point, it's just like, I had no issues anymore. Maybe you could say that first, I don't know, however long it was, before that, you could maybe say that that portion was a little slow. I could probably find out. I just have to mute this so I could probably look. I don't remember exactly where they first mentioned it. Oh, I think it was after the... Yeah. Okay, so here's the letter. The letter that was supposedly from Van Houten that we realized was from his assistant. Should you ever find yourself in Amsterdam, do pay a visit at your leisure. Yeah, that was about 30 minutes in. Basically, once that stuff started to hit is when the movie took an upturn for me. Everything prior to that was a little slow. Not too slow, but a little slow. And I was worried that the movie was going to remain that bad. That it was going to just stay at that pacing, but it didn't. And again, I think the pacing just got better after that point because everything from that point on just was like really good. It just felt natural and properly done. The direction and the camera work was also really good. None of the scenes or shots felt out of place. Nothing felt like it was handled improperly with like shots on the characters or their interactions or specific angles. Nothing felt wrong in that regard. The single only issue that I have is that clapping at their kissing thing. That was fucking weird. I will not deny that. That was fucking weird. I don't know if maybe that's a thing in certain countries. I don't know. The thing is, I can only speak from my perspective. I can't, like, I'm not going to assume other cultures, what they think is normal or what they, is normal for them. I shouldn't say think is normal. It is normal for them. I'm not going to just assume one way or the other, so I don't know. But, yeah, it was just a little weird for me. But that's really the only thing that was. Like, it was just so good. And the fact that they both had cancer and were dealing with that. And most of the time, Gus is fine. But then you find out, like, he relapses and relapses hard. And had been hiding it from her at first. It's like, you understand why he did. And at the same time, you acknowledge that he should have told her, like he said. But you also understand why he didn't. And it definitely dours the mood of the film. It does. It makes things sadder. And it leads up to the tragic ending. Which is a sad, tragic ending. It's not even bittersweet. It's sad. And the movie tells you right from the beginning that that's going to be the case. That this isn't like some magical, happy love story. So, it does tell you that that's going to happen. Though I think my thought of what the ending could have been, might have been a little fun too. With it cutting off mid-sentence like the book did. That would have been pretty interesting. The book she was reading and that she got Gus into and everything, and Van Houten's book, let's just say that. But yeah, I thought it was really, really good. Not the best movie I've seen, even just this year. Because if I'm being honest, romance movies rarely will be like the top of the tier movies for me, just on personal entertainment and everything. They're just not as much my movies as other stuff out there. But I'm always willing to check them out, and hey, I'm always willing to find one that I end up really loving. I mean, I really enjoyed The Notebook, and I really enjoyed this one. And I hope to enjoy more in the future. But in the meantime, thank you to Smurf once again for donating for this. And I would like to hear your thoughts, both you, Smurf, and everyone else watching this. I would like to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. What did you think of The Fault in Our Stars? Have you read the book, and how does that compare? Because I'm not going to read the book, so you can You could spoil any comparisons or whatnot in the comments for me. I don't mind. But if you have read the book, how does that compare? Which version do you think is better? And so on and so forth. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.